we're going through the power rankings, giving some reactions to the Week 7 slate of games, as well as playing win-loss on any team that was on bye last week. That way we can go through their future schedule and predict what their record might end up being at the end of the season. Now let's move on to the AFC, starting with number 16. Let's throw them all the way in the basement. Moving them down 4 spots, we have the New York Jets, who are now 1-5. So if a middle of the road in the Patriots can drop a 50 burger on you when you're coming off a bye, you belong in the deepest depths of the basement. Not only did you get beat badly, but you also may have lost your second overall pick starting quarterback Zach Wilson to a knee injury. He's probably out for 2 weeks. It sounds like there's been a trade made for Joe Flacco to come back to New York City away from the Eagles bench to play reliever for Zach Wilson until he's able to return, and it turns out the Jets have no idea how to manage a bye week. The Jets have lost each of their last 6 games following a bye, not winning one since 2015. Zach only managed to throw 10 balls before being taken out of the game in this one. The rest of the way, we saw Mike White, who went 20 for 32 for 202 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. The only real bright spot in this 54-13 blowout loss was that Elijah Moore got his first career touchdown and really nothing else. It was just bad. And the road isn't getting any easier because now they have to host the 5-2 Bengals. So Jets fans might as well just get comfortable down here in the basement. Make yourselves at home because you're staying a while. Moving on to number 15, moving up 1 spot, we have the Houston Texans, who are also 1-6. The Houston Texans were feeling themselves early when they were up 5-0 on the Cardinals. That, of course, was before they got boat raced the rest of the way, with the Cardinals scoring 31 unanswered. I think the only thing that Houston fans can love/hate about this game is that they got to see D-Hop and J.J. Watt prospering on a better team. DeAndre Hopkins and J.J. Watt combined for 8 first-team All-Pro selections with the Texans, more than half of the 14 total selections in Houston history. But now on Houston's current team, however, virtually nothing interests me besides what will happen with the Deshaun Watson case, who, of course, has refused to play for the Texans despite all of his sexual misconduct legal troubles that have yet to be litigated. It is said that trade talks are heating up and that Miami is the favorite to land him, but other teams also to consider would be the Panthers, Broncos, and Eagles. But Watson does have a no-trade clause in his contract, so he does still have to approve the trade destination before anything goes down, which is why it appears that Miami is the favorite. But really, I don't know why. Considering the way that Miami has been playing, I don't see how they're that much of an upgrade over Houston. But back to the realities of the Deshaun Watson-less Houston Texans. They have to face the 6-1 Los Angeles Rams. But on a positive note, it does appear that Tyrod Taylor is going to be returning to practice starting on Wednesday. But nevertheless, it does seem like there is another L on the horizon for Houston, who will surely be double-digit underdogs at home. So let's move on to number 14. I have the Miami Dolphins here, and they're just moving up 1 spot in this list. They are also 1-6, and the lowly Dolphins only move up on this list following their loss to the Falcons thanks to my harsh correction of the Jets. But the truth is the bottom 4 teams are all relatively interchangeable, and if I could put all of them at 16, I would. So don't be fooled by the box score or Tua's stat line. This was not a great performance by him or the Dolphins, despite only losing by a last-second field goal. Tua dink-and-dunked his way to a stat line of 32 of 40 for 291 yards and 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Honestly, his few rushes were some of the best parts of his game, despite the unassuming stat line of 4 carries for 29 yards. There are a couple good pieces here in Miami, but so far this season they have been underwhelming at best. B-Flow needs to get back into the energy of the Dolphins of yesteryear if they're going to start to have any sort of salvage job on this season. Next week, however, they're on the road against the 4-2 Bills, so unfortunately for the Dolphins, they are staring down the barrel of what will pretty much be a guaranteed loss here against the Bills in Week 8, which will plunge them to 1-7. Moving right along to another team that could be ranked number 16 in the AFC Power Rankings, but I got them up here at number 13, moving up 1 spot again because of my correction on the Jets. We have the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're 1-5. They're coming off the bye week, so let's do that bye week breakdown, which starts off Week 8 at Seahawks, which I'm just going to go ahead and be nice, super nice, and say they get a W there. They had an extra week to prepare, and the Seahawks aren't playing that great, so let's just say they get a W. Week 9, they take the Bills on. They're going to lose that one. Then they're away at the Colts, probably a loss there as well. Then the 49ers, probably a loss. Falcons, toss up, let's be nice again and give them a win. At Rams, at Titans, those are both losses. Week 15, they host the Texans. Let's go ahead and be nice and say they get a win there. Then they're at the Jets. Again, let's be nice and say they get a win there. And then at the Patriots in week 17, probably a loss. And then finish up their season with the Colts, probably a loss. So I'd say best case scenario, these guys are a 5-win team finishing their season at 5-12. But honestly, one of their most interesting matchups is this upcoming week against the Seattle Seahawks. So let's see what happens there. But in the meantime, we're going to move on to number 12, which I have now lowering the Denver Broncos into this spot by one spot. They're moving down. They are now 3-4. And after all seemed right in the world after week 3, the Broncos have managed to drop 4 straight since then, despite only losing to the Browns 14-17 in week 7 on Thursday Night Football. The late touchdown just made the box score appear closer than the game ever felt. These Denver Broncos are simply trending in the wrong direction. They beat up on some bad teams early and haven't been able to scrape together a win against any legitimate teams. Part of that also has to do with turnovers. Teddy Bridgewater is 0-4 with 5 interceptions since week 4, and he was 3-0 with 0 interceptions in weeks 1 through 3. It also has to do with defense. The Broncos have allowed 101 points combined in their last 4 games, versus Denver in their first 3 weeks allowing only 26 points combined. But again, you could also probably contribute a lot of that to the competition they faced. And it's not like they have a really tough matchup this week either. They're facing the 2-5 Washington football team, so this could either be a get-right game for the Broncos, as in a chance to even up their record against another mediocre opponent, or they could drop the ball here, and they are likely to be swimming in the deep end of these power rankings the rest of the season. And as a quick note here, Micah Kiser, the linebacker, was placed on IR with a groin injury. Let's move on to number 11 in the AFC Power Rankings. I have the Colts moving up a spot here. They are also 3-4, and Carson Wentz seems to be coming back into form. He has had now a 100-plus passer rating in 4 straight games for the first time since 2018. He had none of those in 2020, though it probably should have been a worse passer rating because for some reason the play where he threw the ball directly to Al-Shaair, it is recorded as a sack fumble because Nick Bosa was already in the process of bringing him down, and I guess the argument could be made that the ball slipped out of his hands instead of an actual pass. So the stat line ended up being an unassuming 17 of 26 for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, rushing for another touchdown, and then that fumble. Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman both had great games with 100-plus yards and a touchdown each, but a pretty gritty win considering the pouring rain. Now, next week they host the 5-2 Titans, and this game is absolutely massive for the Colts. Winning cements them as a real contender in my book. A loss here signifies that their best shot at a playoff berth will be a wildcard spot, and that will be very tough considering the congestion amongst the top of the AFC. And luckily for the Colts, it does appear that T.Y. Hilton is going to be ready to lace him up and play against the Titans in Week 8. But we are going to move on to number 10 in our power rankings, which I have the Steelers moving down in the list, even though they were on their bye week. They are 3-3. Let's do a bye week breakdown. So week 8, they're facing the Browns in Cleveland. I'm going to give them an L there since Nick Chubb is coming back. Then they have the Bears at home and the Lions at home. Let's give them wins in both of those games. Then they go on the road to the Chargers, to the Bengals, then host the Ravens. All 3 of those games I would foresee as the Steelers losing. Then they face the Vikings. The Vikings are probably going to win that one as well, so another loss for the Steelers. Then the Titans, then the Chiefs, then the Browns, then the Ravens. Rough. Let's just say I don't anticipate a lot more wins in the future of the Steelers. In this very moment, the way that I just read it out, I would be giving them a record of 5-12. That seems a little bit harsh, so maybe it's going to end up something like 6-11. At best case scenario, I would say that they get to 7 or 8 wins. That is the absolute peak of the mountain for this version of the Pittsburgh Steelers, which means that Mike Tomlin is going to walk away with his first losing record as a head coach here in Pittsburgh. So maybe they can get this win against the Browns without Baker Mayfield here, but I'm not anticipating it necessarily. Again, I just have a lot more faith in this Browns team than I do the Steelers. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to number 9, the New England Patriots. I have them moving up one spot in this list. They're 3-4, And New England is the first team since 1950 to have each of their first 3 wins of a season come against a rookie starting quarterback. That fact alone makes me a bit concerned that I have their value a bit inflated here, but at the same time, dropping a 50 burger on any NFL team is not something that I even fathomed a Mac Jones-led Patriots team was even capable of. I mean, the Jets had already faced them once this year, had a bye week for extra preparation, and still got taken behind the shed. Mac Jones completed 24 of 36 for 307 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Damian Harris had himself a game, carrying the ball 14 times for 106 yards and 2 touchdowns. Other players that found the end zone are J.J. Taylor with 2, and Brandon Bolden, Nelson Aguilar, Hunter Henry, and plus Kendrick Bourne made his first pass attempt in the NFL, and that went for a touchdown. The Jets just stink, dude. Injury-wise, it's of note that Jonathan Jones, the corner, is going to go get season-ending surgery to repair his shoulder. And up next on the schedule for the New England Patriots is going on the road against the 4-2 Chargers, who are coming off a bye. This is a true test. Can you really actually pull off a win, not just keep it close against a formidable opponent? Or should we just continue to expect the Patriots to only be able to beat up on the little guy instead of picking on someone their own size? All right, let's keep this thing moving. At number 8, we have the Chiefs dropping 4 spots. They are 3-4. And it's just time for a reality check in the power rankings. Maybe these Chiefs just aren't that good anymore. In a blowout 27-3 loss to the Titans, the Chiefs scored fewer than 10 points in a game for the first time in Patrick Mahomes' career in a regular season game. And the main reason for this fall from grace has to be turnovers. Since Patrick Mahomes became the full-time starting quarterback back in 2018, Kansas City has not had more than 18 giveaways in a full season. We're only 7 games into this season. They still have 10 more to go, and they've already given away 17 this season. Then on the defensive side of the ball, they haven't been able to stop a nosebleed. The Chiefs have allowed 3 or more offensive touchdowns in 6 of their last 7 games, and if the Chiefs are going to be able to turn this around, it needs to start happening before the top of the AFC begins to start to separate. Fewer turnovers, fewer penalties, and getting Hill and Kelsey both the ball ad nauseum. Better O-line play, and since we're giving the ball away so many times, I'll say it again, fewer turnovers. And next week, they host the 2-5 Giants on Monday Night Football, and this will either be a get-right game or the reddest of red flags. And on that note, we're going to go ahead and press forward to number 7 on the list. We have the Raiders, who are moving up a spot in the list. They are 5-2, and Derek Carr played an absolutely insane game from an efficiency perspective against the Eagles, completing 31 of 34 passes for 323 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a giveaway, with a passer rating of 113.6. Personally, I feel like I've always been higher on Carr than the general public, but I mean, this isn't even the first time he's pulled off something like this. This is actually the second game in which Derek Carr has had 30-plus pass attempts and a 90-plus completion percentage in a game. And if you look around the league throughout all of NFL history, only one other quarterback has ever done that before. He's done it twice. So is Sid from Toy Story better without Chucky? Early indicators say yes. But I think his game greatly evolved while Gruden was his head coach, and as for now, the Raiders seem to have righted the ship and are currently sitting atop the competitive AFC West. Record-wise, since the Chargers had a bye, now it's their turn. So they'll have 2 weeks to prepare for the Giants. And we're going to go ahead and move on to number 6 on the AFC Power Rankings, which I have as the Cleveland Browns, who are staying put on the list and have improved to 4-3 on the year. So the Browns took on the Broncos on Thursday Night Football, but Baker Mayfield, Nick Chubb, and Kareem Hunt were all injured and out for the game, meaning the Browns were taking the field with backup quarterback Case Keenum and backup running back in Dearness Johnson. Well, Dearness Johnson had an absolute storybook of a game with 24 touches for 168 scrimmage yards and a touchdown. His story really got to me, DMing every single Alliance League team after getting released by the Saints practice squad back in 2018 to get a tryout and then showing up in prime time. It was really cool to see the shock on his face after the game when he learned that LeBron James was tweeting about him. Injuries made way for him to have an opportunity to shine, and he squeezed out every ounce of that moment. On the same track, the next man up, performing admirably, Case Keenum went 21 of 33 for 199 yards and a touchdown. There's actually some familiarity here because Case Keenum played under Kevin Stefanski with Minnesota back in 2017 when Stefanski was his quarterback coach, and Keenum went 11-3 as a starter there and had a career high in passing touchdowns. So it seems like the Browns are actually in pretty good hands with Baker Mayfield on the sideline. And in week 8, they're going to host the Steelers, and the Steelers have had a bye week to prepare for this divisional matchup, but the Browns have had somewhat of a mini bye themselves since they had to play on Thursday night, and the Browns really cannot afford to lose this one if they want to keep pace in the division. But, of course, the Steelers want to be matching that same energy. But we're going to go ahead and move on to number 5 on the list. We have the Tennessee Titans, who are moving up 2 spots on the list. They improved to 5-2, and after losing the season opener to the Cardinals and then a weird week 4 to the Jets, the Titans have rattled off 3 straight wins and have found themselves coming off a week in which they curb stomped the Chiefs. Pretty impressive considering they didn't even have Derrick Henry breaking 100 rushing yards to do it, although he did have over 100 all-purpose yards and he even threw a touchdown pass. Ryan Tannehill played really well, throwing 21 of 27 for 270 yards, a touchdown and an interception, but also he rushed in a touchdown. A.J. Brown bounced back to form with 8 catches for 133 yards and a touchdown, but really I need to take this rare opportunity to praise the Titans' defense. They forced 3 fumbles, recovered 2 of them, picked Patrick Mahomes, and sacked him 4 times, all while holding the high-flying potential of the Kansas City offense to just 3 points. Now, next week, they have to go up against a divisional opponent in the 3-4 Colts, and this divisional matchup will mean a lot for both teams. If the Colts win, they are right back in the thick of it for the division, but if the Titans get the win, then they are going to have a pretty firm grasp on the division, considering the Colts are really their only threat, and that would put them up by 3 games. But I'm going to go ahead and move on to number 4 in the AFC Power Rankings, which means I'm going to talk about the Los Angeles Chargers, who are 4-2 and we're just on a bye, so let's go ahead and do the bye week breakdown. Week 8, they host the Patriots. I'll give them a win there. Then they go on the road to the Eagles. That's probably another win. Then the Vikings, another win. Steelers, another win. At Broncos, another win. Bengals, a loss. Giants, that's a win. Chiefs, probably another win. Texans, Broncos, win-win. Then finish the season at the Raiders. Let's just go ahead and, just for fun, say that's a loss. So, I mean, the Chargers could be realistically something like 13-4. They're probably going to drop more games than that, but 13-4 is definitely within the realm of possibilities for these Los Angeles Chargers. They're going to kick it off next week by hosting the Patriots, and I think that is going to be a get-right game for the Chargers and a letdown game for the Patriots. But I'm going to go ahead and move on to number 3 in the power rankings for the AFC, which means I'm going to talk about the Ravens, who are moving down 2 spots in this list. They were cursed after I put them number 1 last week. They're 5-2, and 1 week removed from destroying a top-tier AFC team in the Chargers. They got served a taste of their own medicine against the Bengals. In a completely lopsided affair, Lamar didn't have any answers for the Bengals defense, and the Ravens defense didn't pass the eye test against Burrow and the Bengals. Lamar rushed for 88 yards on 12 carries and threw for 15 of 31 for 257 yards and a touchdown, but ended up getting pulled in the 4th quarter because of the blowout. As for the defense, they are not nearly as stout as they were last year. In this game, they allowed an 8th rushing touchdown to an opposing running back this season, and Baltimore only allowed 7 rushing touchdowns all of last year. Plus, just through 7 games, the Ravens have allowed 400-plus total yards for the 4th time this season. They only did that 3 times in all of 2020. Luckily, they have a bye week to think things over, and they have 2 weeks to prepare for their next game, which is against the Vikings. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to number 2 in the power rankings, which I have moving up 3 spots. The Cincinnati Bengals are 5-2, and after completely dismantling the Ravens 41-17, they would actually hold the 1 seed. If the season ended today, they would be getting the bye. But Jamar Chase is on an absolutely historic pace. Jamar Chase has 754 yards already, and that surpasses one of my all-time Arizona Cardinals favorites, Anquan Boldin, with 621 yards back in 2003 for the most receiving yards in a player's first 7 career games. Chase's play goes hand in hand with how well Joe Burrow is playing in his 2nd year. Joe Burrow is just the 5th quarterback in NFL history with 60-plus completion percentage and 2-plus touchdown passes in each of their team's first 7 games of the season. So these aren't the same old Bengals. They are unquestionably the real deal. Not only is their offense cooking, but their defense is hanging tough as well. The Bengals have allowed 25 points or fewer in each game this season, and they're the only team in the NFL that can say that. Next week, they got a layup of an opponent going on the road to take on the 1-5 Jets, so another game that appears to be a lock on the horizon for the Bengals. 6-2, here they come. And on the horizon for us is talking about the number 1 seed in my power rankings. I have the Buffalo Bills. They're moving back up to the 1 seed. They've hosted it before. They're back now. They were on a bye. They're 4-2, so let's do the bye week breakdown. Week 8, they're getting the Dolphins, so that's a win. Jags, that's a win. Jets, that's a win. Colts, probably a win. Saints, probably a win. Then they host the Patriots in Week 13, and I'll give them a win there as well. Then in 14, they go to Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers. Let's go ahead and give them a loss. Then they host the Panthers, that's a win. At the Patriots, that's a win. Falcons, that's a win. Jets, that's a win. So they could really realistically go 14-3. Could they drop some of those games? Yes, but in terms of the strength of schedule, they can really realistically go 14-3, which is ultimately why I have them up here in the number 1 seed. And they're going to kick that off by hosting the Dolphins. Like I said, they're 1-6, and that's going to be an easy dub for the Bills. Thank you for listening to this little highlight of the 2 Minute Drill podcast. If you want to listen to the show in its entirety, show links are in the description. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.